show.
Good morning. You're now listening to Kingston Community Radio, airing on FM 92.5, AM 920 WGHQ in Kingston, New York. This programming is brought to you by our listeners and corporate underwriters who are interested in presenting local community radio. The opinions expressed on this program do not represent those of Pamel Broadcasting or Kingston Community Radio. Listeners are encouraged to send in $10 per month to help bring this program to you, and mail your contributions to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. For more information or to donate online, visit our website at mykcr.org. Good morning, and this is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in, sharing the morning with us, being a part of today's Medical Monday with Dr. Eric Stanberg. Monday, December 13th, 36 degrees right now. And you're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR is talk radio and a call-in show. Our call-in line is 845-331-9255. 845-331-9255. Visit our Facebook page at facebook.com, groups KCR920. Good morning, and this is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in, sharing the morning with us, being early birds like us, and being a part of today's program. Monday, December 13th, right now today, and 36 degrees is how we start out. We'll start out today at 36 degrees, and let's see, it's going to be 37 degrees, so about 46 degrees, 49, 51 degrees at 2 today, and 51 degrees as our high for today. Sunset's at 4:25, and it's going to be a sunny day today. Good morning. You're listening to Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. It's Monday, December 13th, 36 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston on this Medical Monday day, Tuesday, December 13th. And you're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR is talk radio and a call-in show. Our call-in line is 845-331-9255, 845-331-9255. And visit our Facebook page at facebook.com, groups KCR920. And our hosts today are Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker. Good morning, and this is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in and sharing the morning with us, being a part of today's program. It's Monday, December 13th, 36 degrees here right now in uptown Kingston. It's a sunny day today, and the high is 51 degrees at about 4 o'clock today. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR is talk radio and a call-in show. 331-9255, 331-9255. Good morning. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR is talk radio and a call-in show. Our call-in line is 845-331-9255. Visit our Facebook page at facebook.com, groups KCR 920. Today our hosts in the talk studio will be Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker. Good morning, this is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in, being early birds like us, and being a part of today's program. Monday, December 13th, 36 degrees here in uptown Kingston. Today's weather is going to be 36 right now. It's 36 right now, and it's going to go up to about 51 degrees at about 2 p.m. today. It'll be the high, and it's a sunny day today. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR's talk radio and a call-in show. Our call-in line is 845-331-9255. Visit our Facebook page at facebook.com, groups KCR 920. Today our hosts in the talk studio are Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker. And good morning. And you are listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, KCR's talk radio and a call-in show. Love to have some new callers today, 845-331-9255. Don't be afraid. We're just part of the show. Okay, let's hand it over to Dr. Eric Stanberg.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Dan. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's show. Beautiful sunrise going on right now, I will say. Shades of purple and red and pink. Really is quite impressive. I'll be here until 9 a.m. Robin will be joining us. We also have as our guest this morning Dr. Catherine Agricola, a very esteemed colleague of mine who has an interesting type of practice model, and she'll be calling in a couple of minutes. And then we'll just kind of have some various topics. You know, when I prepare for the show, I kind of say, you know, should we talk about COVID? Should we not talk about COVID? How much should we talk about COVID? The answer is we still need to talk about COVID, and unfortunately, we need to talk about it more than I would like to have to talk about it at this point. I spent the weekend at the hospital working, and there are hospitalized patients, one of whom is in my mind because he is so seriously ill with this horrible virus, and I'm very concerned that he might not pull through. So we have to talk about that. The governor has put a mandate in place, I think starting today, for businesses, public spaces. If I understand the new mandate, you need to wear a mask or an establishment might choose to ask for proof of vaccination instead of requiring a mask. I'll try to verify that. And I'll tell you, you know, regardless of how you I don't know, this really winds people up, but whatever you feel, whatever, you have to really examine your emotions and try to understand where they come from. But don't take it out on people who are just trying to follow the rules that are set for them and run their businesses through this difficult, trying times. That is absolutely the wrong thing to do. You know, videos all over social media, people, yelling at workers at McDonald's or other places, regarding wearing a mask or whatever. They're really just ridiculous videos. And I'll tell you, everything lives forever in social media. So, if that's you getting filmed and all of a sudden you go for a job interview somewhere and somehow it comes up, it's not going to look favorably on you. So please, 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 whatever you feel, do not take it out on people who are simply doing their jobs and are simply trying to continue to make a living in these trying times. So, all right. So I wanted to make a brief blurb before Dr. Agricola calls in, which I think she said about 7:15. This time of year, it really is rather dark. We're approaching the shortest day of the year. I believe that's December 20. Is it December 21st or 23rd? I think it's the 21st. The winter solstice, the shortest day of the year for us. And there is something that is well established. And in a way, why do we need to name it? Because we know it exists, which is called seasonal affective disorder. And it also is just kind of how even people with who are prone to depression, treated for depression, or just people who kind of have some difficult times during winter months will have this problem. And I have really caught myself recommending light therapy. There's a lot of great products on the market. They're not particularly expensive. They make great Hanukkah and Christmas gifts. It's not like I own stock in one of these companies. But sometimes they're called a sad lamp. However, as Robin will point out, that's kind of emphasizing the sadness which you might be experiencing during these times rather than the opposite. So we decided that we like to call them happy lights. But these are special lights that are designed to kind of position in front of your face, obviously not right directly in front of your face, maybe off to a little bit. And the idea is that every morning at approximately the same time, you use this light for anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes to help with your mood. And it's something that I have been doing. Robin, good morning, Ms. Baker. We're talking about happy lights. And it's something I've been doing. And I really think it makes a difference. I think it really kind of wakes me up and gives me a little more energy for the day. It's kind of filling in that sunlight that's not there. And there's science behind it. The happy lights are kind of designed to be wavelengths that are mimicking sunlight. So it's not just like sitting in front of a desk lamp. It's a little more complicated than that. There's science behind it. But I really think it's it's an interesting therapy. And again, when I look at things that maybe aren't really proven, but they kind of make sense on a common sense level, I kind of say, first of all, are they expensive? If something costs you $1,500, maybe it's not worth the gamble. But these lights are available for $30. Of course you can get fancier models, but $30, $40, $50 on you can get them anywhere. And I can't think of why it might be harmful. So those are the two things I kind of say to myself. Is it potentially harmful, and is it, ridiculously expensive? And the answer is to both those is no. And I kind of say, all right, if go for it. I kind of say that a lot about certain supplements. I'm a little skeptical of most supplements, but I feel like if they're not unreasonably expensive and not potentially harmful, if someone wants to take them, okay with me.
Right, good idea.
Yeah. Anyway, so these happy lights are something that I would recommend, and because I think it can really make a difference how you experience these upcoming months, and unfortunately we're headed. I think we got a new year coming, right? 2022, but I'm a little cynical about how January and February are going to be for us, unfortunately.
Yeah, you were in the hospital this weekend. It wasn't looking so good.
I was talking to Dr. Tack, who's been a frequent guest on our show. He talked about surgeon cases at Kingston Hospital this weekend. I was at Northern Dutchess Hospital, so really kind of almost a doubling of inpatients in a couple days, and it's sort of what we were nervous about. Kind of a perfect storm of not enough people vaccinated. The Delta variant still present, a newer variant, the Omicron variant, and then people being indoors more, and also the family gatherings of Thanksgiving followed by Christmas. And January of this year, January 2021, and February were really rough months for that reason. We really saw a lot of cases. So I'm nervous, and I was talking about the new mask mandate, from Governor Hochul.
Mm-hmm.
How I think she's being very appropriately cautious. I think it's always hard to be in these positions of the one to kind of like make the choice. Because if somehow things wind up being not that bad, people sometimes say, "Oh, well, look at that! You declared a state of emergency for no reason." When the alternative, maybe the opposite would have been the wrong decision, or maybe things weren't that bad because of what you did.
On the news on the way in, 3 upstate New York hospitals have closed to have no non-essential surgeries.
Yeah, elective surgeries, and we talked about this at various shows when it happened. The dysfunctional nature of our healthcare system. These are the money makers for hospital systems. Orthopedic surgeries. Ironically, things like needing your appendix out at 3 a.m. or just someone who is gravely ill and has to be in the ICU for a couple of weeks. That's not where the hospitals get their profits from. They get it from these elective procedures. So this is a big deal that then has a ripple effect throughout the remainder of the system. And I believe on the phone we have our guest for the morning. Could that be you?
Good morning, Dr. Stamberg.
Oh, good morning. There's a voice I haven't heard in a while. And then, Robin's here, of course.
Hi, Dr. Agricola.
Hi, Robin. How are you? Happy
Good morning.
holidays.
Good morning.
So.
How are you?
That's like coffee talk. All right, so first, I just want you to tell us how you're doing. How are things going with, give us the name of your practice and how it's going.
Sure, yeah. So, my name is Catherine Agricola. I'm a primary care doctor, and I have a primary care practice located in Newburgh, and it's in a direct primary care model. It's called Ulticare Primary Medical Care. And a direct primary care model is something that's not as widespread in this region, but it is gaining traction across the country as a different model of medical care especially for primary care, but also even specialists are starting to think about other ways to actually practice their specialty too. And the way direct primary care works is the purpose of it is to try to streamline the relationship between the doctor and the patient by essentially directly contracting with the patient and not involving as many third parties or other interfering factors into the care. And so we do that through a membership plan. So patients have a membership to my practice and sort of opens the door for much more streamlined access and relationship. And it's almost basically as simple as that.
Yeah. Amazing how simple it is. Robert.
It can be so simple. Yeah. It kind of harkens back to sort of an old school way of interfacing with your doctor where you deal directly with them and then you provide a service and they pay you and then you're done. So I don't bill insurance for any of the services that I provide, but certainly we, having insurance available to pay for larger expenses makes sense. But for the smaller kind of day-to-day sort of primary care, more nuanced, it's more about the longitudinal care. It doesn't make sense to involve an insurance company for every small part of your care. Kind of like with car insurance, how you're not submitting car insurance claims for your wiper changes and your maintenance and your stuff, your gas.
But if you have, your engine needs to be, maybe, I don't know, what do they have, the extended warranties and things like that for bigger jobs. Well, so how long has it been since you've been doing this?
So it's been good. It's been a learning curve on my end. It's been a growth process like any small business is, and not to mention, throw a pandemic in the middle of it. You're just kind of also trying to figure it out in the world. But overall, I mean, my patients that are a part of the practice, I think, are really happy. Me as a provider, I'm very happy with the way I'm able to practice medicine, which allows much more flexibility from a doctor standpoint, and then from a patient standpoint, flexibility and how they want to get their care, because not everybody wants it in the same way necessarily.
Right.
So it's going well. I mean, the practice has been continuing to grow steadily since I began with it, which was in 2019. And so it's just been slowly kind of, what's considered a micro practice or a small practice. So I don't have another doctor in the office, and
Right.
I don't have another staff member in the office. I have some sort of virtual care. My husband helps with the office as well. So we grow at the pace that we can grow. So.
Well, so sometimes I'm not even sure how to answer this question, but how is your model, the DPC model, different from a concierge model?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's in a similar spectrum in the sense that they're different. It's an alternative way to think about how to create a practice that's sustainable or is working a little bit differently. But generally, concierge tends to include a fee in a sense, whether it's a monthly membership or an annual kind of fee. It generally is a little bit higher,
Right.
meaning that it targets a little bit of a different demographic as far
Right.
as who can afford it. And then usually concierge will also bill insurance. So it's a way that they're able to lower their patient panel because they don't have to see as many people per day in order to generate the claims and the income. But they still do bill claims and get income from insurance companies. But they don't have to see as many people because they also offset that by having the annual fee or the monthly membership or something like that.
Right. I guess that's a good answer, because I think the difference is mostly cost, and a concierge. If a doctor calls themselves a concierge physician, it's usually cost prohibitive for most people. I can't identify any major differences in the level of service. And I always tell the anecdote of there was an elderly couple that I was caring for, and they were simultaneously under the care still under the care of a concierge doctor out of the city, and just understanding the economics of medicine. The doctor in the city was making a lot more than I was, to provide the local care. And one of the patients, the concierge doctor had run some labs, and the patients were in their 90s, and it showed that this elderly man had leukemia. And the solution was literally call me. So
You hadn't even run the labs.
No, that was kind of the recommendation. Call me and I would deal with it. So it made me a little cynical about
concierge.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think
what?
it's hard. Sometimes I will say that sometimes you may see people understand concierge, I guess, more quickly from a marketing standpoint of just like you're getting something, a higher level or I guess just as far as how the word, hits people's ears.
Right.
So I will say that there are some direct primary care doctors that just for marketing purposes, in the sense that they either live in a region where it is kind of hard to explain the nuance, they will sort of say concierge care at an affordable price or something like that, because there is this a spectrum of practicing that's happening in their region or something where they're trying to get people to understand that this is concierge level care, if not higher level care in some ways, like you said, because there's sort of this implicit dedication to your patients that comes along with direct primary care, because you're kind of the motivation behind it is really to get out of the system of insurance and the treadmill of it and really focus on the patient, and therefore the care tends to be more genuine, I guess.
Right.
But at the same time, it's hard to explain that from a marketing standpoint. So people you'll still hear the word concierge thrown around, just in the sense of like it's a concierge level care or something like that.
Yeah.
But
and by the way,
that's an interesting story though with concierge, because it's true. I mean, especially if they're not really that local, then their role is harder to justify.
Well, when Rob and I over the years will talk about how do we fix our healthcare system, we have the Wizard of Oz model. Remember the Wizard of Oz model of that, Robin?
Go ahead.
You do it. You do it better.
I don't.
All right. I mean, basically, you had it all wrong. Good, available, accessible, well-trained primary care will fix so much of what's wrong with the healthcare system. And it's been right in front of our eyes all along. And this is a good example of Dr. Agricola, adopting a model that's enabling her to provide them.
Yeah.
And the presence of the insurance companies is it's just worse than ever. The number of prior authorizations that are being demanded, what I call shadow primary care. Have you seen this at all, Dr. Agricola? This is
no. What is shadow primary care?
Companies like United Healthcare, usually with Medicare patients, will kind of send a nurse practitioner into the home to basically do a wellness visit. And then they've gotten better at sending me reports, but the reports are really not that helpful. First of all, they're my patients. It's telling me stuff I already know. And it strikes me as a weird use of resources, if take those resources and just put them in the pot of primary care that you already have, rather than kind of set up a whole kind of separate parallel system to, I guess, provide patients with, preventative care.
Well, the wellness visits are where the money is, Dr. Stanberg.
I think it has to do with the fact that the HMOs that provide Medicare products have to kind of then provide to the government evidence that they do good preventative care. So instead of entrusting me with encouraging my patients to get preventative care like mammograms and colonoscopies, they adopt a completely alternative parallel system. And that's kind of what it is. But yes, it does have to do with money at the end of the day. It's not.
Of course it does.
It's not out of the goodness of it.
That's correct.
Well, and so let's what's the word? Let's
Segue.
Okay, I rode one on the way into work today. Mm-hmm. Over to how things are going on the day to day with your practice. Like, what type of things are you seeing? Has COVID, for example, had an impact on your practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's impacted it in the sense of just having to think about how to work with the office flow, how to have patients come into the office versus telemedicine visits. As far as growing the practice, we've still been gaining new patients steadily even through the pandemic. And in some ways, I think it's some people have sort of felt like even more compelled to sort of establish with a reliable relationship with a doctor during a pandemic, so that they have somebody who's kind of readily available to ask questions to, or make visits with in whatever way that would be helpful. But yeah, on a day-to-day, I mean, I see sort of the general breadth of primary care. I do take care of all ages, pediatrics and adults. So I have the regular general wellness checkups for kids, as well as adult follow-up visits for chronic conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes, high cholesterol, and then COVID as well. So I've had, unfortunately, I'm sure you have seen it too, where, there was a little bit more quiet. It was a little more quiet in the summer with my patients actually having COVID. And so I wasn't taking care of too many COVID patients as an outpatient. But lately, in the last month or so, having a few more patients diagnosed with COVID, whether they were vaccinated or not, there's definitely a difference in how they tolerate the the virus if they're vaccinated or not, but certainly both populations of people are experiencing positive cases. So so I've had some of those over the last month or two where I typically will follow them a little, closely over the phone every day or every other day, checking in to see how they're doing, and deciding, if they need the monoclonal antibody treatment or any other kinds of treatments at home.
Is that a treatment you've been
recommending?
Have you been recommending the monoclonal antibody treatment?
For people that are kind of fit the criteria or that are at higher risk. Yes, sometimes it's a little challenging where they can go get it. So it's kind of trying to coordinate all of that. But because also my catchment area for my practice, my central office is in Newburgh.
Right.
But because the practice can be flexible in the sense I can provide telemedicine and text messaging platform that I use, and it doesn't require an office visit as often as it might in the traditional fee-for-service setting, where you call with a lot of questions and you're like, well, just come in for an appointment.
Right.
So my catchment area for patients is really broad. I mean, going all the way down to like the Harriman, area, where the Woodbury Commons malls are, all the way up to like the Albany area and all the way over to like the Pennsylvania border.
Wow.
On one side and all the way over to Dutchess County on the other side. So sometimes it depends where the patient is that have to think about the resources of where they are locally.
Right.
Investigating what to do.
Yeah, I range most of the time out of Vassar. And then sometimes out of Kingston Hospital or Health Alliance. But it is important for people to remember that this is still a treatment that should be considered at this point in almost every case of COVID. There are a few cases where they just don't meet criteria, but the criteria has broadened.
It's pretty broad, yeah. Most people do seem to meet it. So then the next step is just getting it coordinated and getting them treatment. And actually is, I just found out from a case recently, an organization that will come and do it in your home.
Wow.
I don't think it's available in Ulster County, but I know in Orange County it seems like there's some availability with this organization. And then Garnet Health, which used to be Orange Regional Medical Center, has availability as well. And then I sent somebody to Westchester Medical Center. This was a while back. But yeah, and Vassar as well. Sending people over there. So
yeah, and I just we might as well take advantage of this opportunity to remind people listening that the antibody treatment is really an excellent thing. Should be done with still the guideline is within 10 days of symptom onset, but really can be quite effective at preventing a case from getting worse. And there also are people who are higher risk contacts, exposures. They also might be candidates for this treatment as well. So,
right.
Oh, okay. Kathy, can you stay on? Because we have our first break, and we have a few more things. Okay. So it's nice to hear from you. All right, so we'll go over to our...
thanks for having me on.
Okay.
Be right back.
Okay, thank you. You are listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. My name is Dan Gaddis, and it's Monday, December 13th, and 36 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio will be brought to you by Central Hudson. And a little bit of weather and forecast for the next 3 days. Some clouds, some sun today with a high of 52. Tonight's low will be about 30 degrees. Tuesday, some clouds, a high of 49, some sun as well. And Tuesday night's low is going to be 27 degrees. Wednesday, later on, there will be a 40% chance of rain on an otherwise cloudy day. And Wednesday night's low is 42 degrees. And as I said, Central Hudson is our underwriter for this upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio. You're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, 732 AM. And our call-in number is 331-9255, 331-9255. Now let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Eric Stanberg, Robin Baker, and Dr. Catherine Agricola. Welcome back.
All right. Thank you. Welcome to the second half
Thank you.
hour of this morning show. We're on the phone with Dr. Catherine Agricola, who is a internist and a pediatrician, sometimes called med-peds. And so she's board certified in both specialties. So if you say to her, are you an internist? The answer is yes. If you say, are you a pediatrician? The answer is yes. She is both. And she is the owner of Altu Care, which is a practice that's out of Newburgh. The model is DPC, which stands for Direct Primary Care. And we're talking about that and her experience is that. Is that a good summary?
That's a great summary.
Okay. So we were talking about the antibody treatment and how helpful. It's still underutilized. And actually one of my, and maybe you've experienced this too, is, we kind of have a system where the care is fragmented. So a lot of people, they develop acute symptoms and they get maybe they self-diagnose, get a home testing kit from one of the pharmacies
Right.
or from an urgent care, and urgent cares are not quite prepared or willing or whatever to recommend the antibody treatment for patients. So I really tell people that if you're diagnosed with COVID, you should follow up with your primary care provider over the next few days to get a more definitive treatment plan in place. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. I think getting tested should be readily available, and those home tests and urgent cares and stuff is great. But yeah, I think definitely make people, regardless of how they get a positive test, to check in with their kind of fundamental primary care doctor just to make sure there's nothing else they should be doing or watching for, or contacts that should get, like you said, potentially get treated and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. So when you first went at this model and you and I were talking about it, I remember, I was kind of saying, hey, this model makes the insurance industry very, very nervous. How's, the whole idea that here's a healthcare delivery system that is potentially going to be completely independent of insurance as we know it, with the exception of, when something really bad goes on. We used to have major medical insurance. You had needed surgery, you had a car, broken bone, things like that. And as you pointed out, most of the routine care, like routine car care, was just kind of paid out of pocket. How's that going? Do you think that the insurance industry is still trying to stand in the way of this?
I don't know where they're standing now. I mean, I think they obviously don't. They don't. They probably don't like. They do see this as a threat in some ways, just in the sense of starting to have patients maybe even demand that their care is a little bit different. I don't see direct primary care being, overthrowing the insurance company model anytime soon. But I think it's, I see it kind of more as just shaking things up a little bit in the whole market of how to provide primary care. And I also think it's another way for doctors to think about providing care too, especially if they're not entirely happy with the way they're practicing in the fee-for-service model, to just kind of at least think about that there might be other ways to do it. I mean, one thing that I think we'll start seeing, if people haven't already started seeing, is direct primary care, because it has gotten a lot of positive feedback from the patient and doctor standpoint of the people who are in it. Not necessarily insurance companies, but kind of venture capitalists and kind of corporations are potentially trying to come into that market also. So you might see these larger companies starting to try to market themselves as direct primary care, when in reality they're sort of there's a terminology, I think, in the direct primary care movement of they're direct primary care in name only. They don't kind of embody the values of direct primary care, which is to streamline the doctor-patient relationship, to personalize it, and also to be cost conscious.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you and I talked about that because
companies that come in and they're not necessarily having those same value systems driving them.
Right. You and I I'd stumbled on an ad for a company like that, and you and I talked about it. And you're right. This is It's not quite what people need, unfortunately. But
Right. Yeah. And so I think, unfortunately, there might become more confusion in about just what is direct primary care, because some people may not have really heard about it from its more fundamental grassroots origins, and now we're kind of seeing it as almost concierge in some ways.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how things unfold over the coming years or decade or so, and how primary care. So then there are some challenges to direct primary care. I mean, it's not the answer either, because you also do need to act within a larger system. We're still trying to provide primary care to the whole community, and it is hard to do that kind of one person at a time. So you do want to develop systems, if you can, that that work well. But I think the way the systems have evolved over the past decades have just swung way too far in one direction, meaning sort of controlled by insurance companies and things like that.
Everything just keeps getting bigger, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And
But I still get frustrated too, because I'm not entirely immune from interfacing with insurance companies, because I still have to complete some prior authorizations for things if my patients need them. So it's not totally protected, unfortunately, from the world.
Yeah, it's frustrating, prior authorizations, because a lot of times it's usually, I guess, just to talk about them a little bit, but there's kind of two types. One is maybe for a medication, the other one is more for a procedure. So procedure would be like an MRI. Whereas
Right.
and a lot of times with the medication, they just cover something very similar, but the whatever that is it's like so murky. That it just makes a lot of work for everyone. If they just kind of said, here, prescribe this one instead, I would make everyone's day a lot easier. Instead, you process a prior auth because you don't know what they cover, and then they say, well, we're going to turn it down because we cover this one. And at which point I kind of say, well, why didn't you just say that? Save this all this energy.
But why do they get to say
Yeah.
anyway? These are like questions that the patients and lay people ask. Why is the insurance company even suggesting that the patient take a different medicine than the doctor is suggesting they take?
Well, sometimes it is totally fine to choose the alternative. The way the pharmaceuticals is set up, the market is set up, is there's a lot of medications that are in the same class, but they're made by different companies. And so they all have a similar effectiveness. This isn't the case for all medications, but for many. And so, but the insurance companies have decided to contract with one of those companies to get a better price. And like you said before, it does come down to money. And
Right.
so we can't pretend like, one thing I guess I've kind of learned in my journey into being a business owner and everything is we can't just ignore money.
No, we can't.
And it does drive, it is a driver of just our society. So you kind of have to understand, like, okay, them as a business, they're trying to get a good price for this drug. And so for whatever reason, it was drug A instead of drug B, which is within the same class. But they have similar effectiveness. So I'm fine oftentimes prescribing for drug A rather than drug
Right.
B. It's just they don't tell you that, and it's constantly changing. So
That's right. And
they negotiate either on an annual basis or who knows how often. And so what might have worked for that insurance company one year doesn't work the next year. And so it just makes everyone's life a lot more complicated, kind of unnecessarily. So it wouldn't be a big deal if they just, it was more, all that information was more readily available, more consistent, more transparent, but it just kind of ends up being this guessing game.
She's absolutely right. Because, in the pharmaceutical industry, they call it Me Too's. Basically, when there's a product that's successful, the other companies all want to kind of like make their own version of it. So before you know it, you could have 3 or 4 or 5 or even more. Before ACE inhibitors that went generic, there were 10 of them. So it all really varied. It doesn't make a big difference to us. We just, We just want it to be in that case. But there are times where they just won't cover something that's reasonable. And diabetes care is a good
Right.
example where we wind up using something that's kind of out of date. These medications called sulfonylureas, like they're called glipizide and glimepiride. And, people may have heard of them, but they're really old school. And they're really not the
Yeah.
right choice for most patients. But there are times where that's the only option that the patient can afford, and it's covered.
Right, which is interesting because I also, being in a different model of care where it's really direct contact with the patient, I have a population of people that don't have insurance because they can't afford it or to them or whatever reason. And the trial helps fill that gap as well because they can now pay a monthly membership and have a much more streamlined access to a doctor who knows them and help them troubleshoot issues. But then you do face prescribing medications and kind of think about cost.
Right.
Bill, because everything that they're doing, everything that the patient is paying is for out of pocket, and you end up with those medications. I think they should say that even they end up with those as well because the other ones aren't covered.
Right.
So it's like the people without insurance, once you're in the same boat.
Yeah, good point. And then we have this Good RX, right? I this is always a little frustrating to me.
It's a car salesman,
What do you mean?
pharmaceutical
Well,
model.
I think I'm trying to figure out where it comes from. I think part of it is for the pharmaceutical industry to get some pressure off of themselves that, oh yeah, our products are expensive, but we have this. But it's like, why don't you just charge that? Why do people have to?
Yeah.
Why do they have to sign up for Good RX and get a coupon or whatever? So.
Yeah.
But that being said, Good RX can be very helpful for people. So if that's the option for them, so be it.
Yeah, good RX, but yep, and similar kind of programs are very helpful whether you use health insurance or not, because sometimes it may make more sense not to use your health insurance and use GoodRx instead.
And then the other type of prior authorization that will show up is like for procedures like MRIs. And, these can be difficult too because you have to kind of make your case, and
Right.
When I order one of these tests, I really feel like I go out of my way to document very clearly why I think the test is necessary. And, we send a note over, and I just feel like a lot of times it just doesn't get even read, because it just kind of eventually goes to a peer-to-peer review. You ever have to do those?
Yeah. I haven't done a peer-to-peer in a while, but the prior authorizations for imaging tests can be frustrating. I mean, again, I can historically kind of understand from a just system standpoint that at some point, maybe if you over-order a very expensive test, that's also not good for the system. So where to
Right.
put the checks and balances, and you have to think about it. But it is getting a little bit more ridiculous for like tests that are not super expensive. Like when I'm asked for a prior authorization for an ultrasound, it makes me frustrated because
Right.
it's just not a test that is going to be draining the system in the same way that like MRI or PET scans or other more expensive tests that might maybe in some circumstances need a check and balance. So yes, but the prior authorization for imaging does get frustrating, and then I mean, and I guess from my standpoint, being a small practice, independent, I don't have staff that is working, tirelessly behind the scenes trying to get prior authorizations through the insurance companies. And so I really am directly faced with them myself. And I also find it so frustrating because the companies that they use, it's always third parties. Usually.
Right,
So if the
third
insurance
party.
company then hires a third party, and maybe even they hire another fourth party or whatever, to like manage all this. So like, but the people that you're actually interfacing with to do the authorization are like 20 degrees removed from the patient by that point.
Right.
They're just like in this automated process of approving or not approving based on some algorithm or criteria. So it makes the whole experience just kind of like so outside of what you feel like medical care it kind of ought to be.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. By the way, when it comes to things like MRIs for back pain and neck pain, they want you to wait. They won't approve these tests right away. You know what? They're kind of right in that regard because most of the time the symptoms improve. Because, I'm sure you have encounters where someone is very uncomfortable and a lot of pain, and they visit kind of starts with the patient kind of requesting, or just stating they need an MRI, and then you have to kind of backpedal a little bit and review the story and usually explain to the patient that it's just not time for the MRI, and that could be frustrating. And so insurance companies will rarely approve the MRI until you've tried conservative therapy, anti-inflammatories, maybe physical therapy for 4 to 6 weeks. And their evidence is kind of sound because most people do get better. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
it's true. And I think that's sort of where probably the prior authorization, maybe historically came from, is there are some guidelines and some research that can help support whether a test is or isn't indicated. But that's sort of where additional, the doctor can try to help tease that out and not necessarily have to have a prior authorization, remind them.
Right. And it's the few times I have to have a peer-to-peer discussion. First of all, it's usually not my peer. I hate to say it. It makes me sound like kind of the snooty doctor, but it's usually someone who's at a computer screen just asking questions and clicking buttons. But
you mean the peer-to-peer is not another doctor?
No. A lot of times it's not another doctor. It could be a nurse. It could be a nurse practitioner. Or it could be someone who's just not healthcare at all, clinical. So that's a little frustrating. And they take time, by the way. I mean, you got to wait on hold. You got to, get the call. A lot of times, once it gets to that level, they do kind of say yes because you kind of jump through so many hoops. You made it to the finish line.
Yeah.
Right, but in the meantime,
it's a game.
In the meantime, there's like so many man hours on this,
right,
on the specific prior authorization. So, Dr. Agricola, what would you say are the the best things about this type of practice from a doctor standpoint, and then conversely wise, what are the best aspects of this for your patients?
Well, the best aspects from a doctor standpoint, I think, is that I get to spend more time with my patients, and I can decide how much time I want to spend with them. So I can decide if I want to schedule people for certain amounts of time, and it may vary. It doesn't have to be a templated sort of, system-wide decision of like every patient gets this kind of appointment or whatnot. So I can tailor what I'm doing, and then also being able to not just have my interactions with patients be just in the office or face-to-face. So like being able to access, them accessing me and me accessing them using virtual manners. So like I had mentioned, like a texting platform, patient portal, my patients are really great about using, and then even email if needed. So I'd say kind of just from a doctor standpoint, it just allows me more time and more touch points with my patients. So it's not like I see them once and then I'm just like, well, I hope I see them again next year. I feel like there's just that relationship that's able to be kind of maintained a little more over time.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
And then also managing my schedule, more flexibility with, my schedule. Needed something going on with my family, like one day I can like block my schedule, or so just kind of that aspect of like a little more autonomy with how I can use my time, and then having my own office space and like my name on the door, and there's just kind of a certain like
nice.
I don't know, it just makes you feel like you're actually doing what you were kind of trained to do,
Yep.
and you're not kind of filing into a building with all of the other worker bees, I guess.
Uh-oh. That's
So
Ouch.
ouch.
no. I think you feel like there's I don't know, when I had I just feel like
I
primary
get
care
it.
doctors do such a hard, work so hard.
Yeah.
And I also work hard. I'm probably working harder now than I even did in my previous job, but in different ways. And I just don't feel like they get the respect, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just that way. You don't have to deal with that. You can kind of decide that you're going to just kind of give yourself the respect, or let your patients and your practice sort of fulfill you.
Well, there's so much pride in it that's amazing.
Yeah,
You know?
but it is hard. I will say, like, I definitely have moments where, as a doctor, I kind of wish I could just delegate it all to an entire department of people to do prior authorizations, or an entire department of people to do administrative stuff. So it definitely does have its challenges from a doctor standpoint as well, but just in a different way. And then from a patient standpoint, I think the benefits really are that they have a consistent doctor who sort of gets to know them, and then is available to them, and is sort of a reliable backbone to the coordination of care. So my patients may see specialists. I had a patient in the office last week who had new onset atrial fibrillation. He was coming in for a follow-up, and when I was examining him, I said, your heart really doesn't sound quite right. And he's like, yeah, actually I haven't been really feeling too well lately. And I said, well, we're going to do an EKG, and we have new atrial fibrillation, and so we can coordinate the care. And I called the cardiologist while I was in the office with him from the exam room, and just said, can we get him in this week? And he got in a couple of days. And so, even though I'm not taking care of that patient for that specific issue any longer, I diagnosed it and then referred him to a specialist. I sent him a message after I knew when the appointment was, because I had scheduled it, and then sent him a message at the end of that day and said, hey, I just wanted to check in and see how that appointment went. How are things going? And then he was able to respond and said, thank you so much. XYZ was the plan, and I'm going back for my ultrasound of my heart on this day. So, I'm sort of more involved in the trajectory of their care, and I welcome them to give me updates. So if they saw a specialist and they say, oh, just so you know, I saw my orthopedist and he's ordering an MRI.
Right.
I said, okay, great. Let me know how that goes.
And you have time. And you have time
kind
to
of
do
thing.
that.
So, yeah, and so there's some time to do that. I was taking care of a patient who's had a little bit of kind of a skin infection over the last week or so. And we've done a lot of almost daily updates on the pictures of here's what it looks like today, and here's what it looks like the next day, and here's what it looks like the next day, just to kind of make sure that it's healing appropriately, or we don't need to make a change to the antibiotics or things like that. So I think there's just this accessibility, and they know that someone's there to kind of help guide them, because it's daunting to be on your own in the medical system, and to know whether you're actually getting the care you need, or you're making the right decision for yourself, or that you just kind of have someone that you're bouncing your ideas off of and things. So,
by the way, that story you told about a patient with new onset atrial fibrillation, in another practice model, that might have resulted in an emergency room visit. So here's a very obvious example of how this model is in the big picture lower cost for all of us. So again, the answer is right in front of our faces.
I think it does cut costs, I think, in many ways, if you can let it play out for long enough. So it takes, I think, a couple years. You got to get to know your patients and everything, but it definitely does. I mean, I think had that person just walked in for a sick visit, or even a acute visit for someone who didn't necessarily know him, and just nuanced the atrial fibrillation, it was going a little bit fast, but I was able, because I had the time, I was able to say, all right, well, I can kind of decide whether or not you need to go to an emergency room for this, and also decide when, depending on how soon you could get in to see the specialist. And then even with the skin infection, sort of preventing an urgent care visit from someone that otherwise might have been kind of concerned about how something was progressing, and being able to sort of say, no, just hang tight, let's keep watching it. You don't need to go to urgent care right now.
Right.
And things like that. So I think it can definitely cut down on costs, because not everything requires a fee-for-service in-office kind of whole system workup where you got it. So.
I mean, the way it is for me now, it's because we have a patient portal, so on and so forth. But it's in a way, I'm still kind of stuck in the fee-for-service model with these non-fee-for-service tools, and that kind of creates a little bit of a contradiction,
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I imagine that there's not an adequate compensation for the kind of work that you're probably spending doing the messages and reading the messages
No.
and reviewing things and responding. And so you're kind of asked to do like double the work
Right.
without the compensation, which doesn't make sense because at least in my practice, I mean, it's a moving target of how I structure my time in order to be able to answer all messages and stuff. But I can start blocking off time or figuring out the best way to work in the message responses to my day and not have to worry about, losing, I guess, compensation because it's only coming from one avenue,
Right.
which would be the office visits and the fee for service. So it's unfortunate, and I hope that changes because that's time that you're using your skills as a doctor to put a plan in place for patients.
Right.
So
Sometimes I
it
say
should
things
be,
like,
it's rewarded in some way or compensated or factored into the expertise that you have.
sometimes I say things like, we have a relational model stuck in a transactional world. And,
Yeah.
anyway, we just a minute or so left. Again, it's great to hear your voice. Are you and Mike able to? They're also, she and her husband Mike are wonderful musicians. Catherine Agricola plays the violin. Yeah, I like when people say, is that a violin or a fiddle? People ever ask you that?
I guess so. I mean, I guess it's it depends on what side of the coin, but
That's right.
similar.
It's like a vase versus a vase, right? Right, Robin?
Yeah, there you go.
So look forward to hearing you guys. Have you guys been able to do any music, or just with Maria, get her dancing and singing, I guess?
Yeah. We do some music at home. Mike plays guitar, and then he also does some keyboards, and then I play violin. And Maria, my daughter, who's 5, she's really getting into music too, and she somehow learned how to write musical notes.
Wow.
How they look on paper. And so she's not writing it on a staff or anything where they actually have pitches to them. So it's really just rhythms is what she's writing. But she'll write it on a piece of paper and then give it to me and be like, play this. Like, well,
Okay,
it's
funny.
rhythm. But we kind of have a fun time like composing together, in her own way, in her own language. So it's really fun actually. Music is pretty amazing.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean you guys are amazing musicians too. I miss being able to see you and play with you.
yes. Well, hopefully we'll have a 2022 where we'll be able to get together.
I hope so.
We're gonna go to our break, but it's nice to hear your voice, and I want to wish you happy holidays and a happy New Year. And
Thank you so much. You too.
you have my eternal respect and admiration.
Oh, that's very nice of you, and likewise. I mean, as people know, we work together, and it was a real pleasure and kind of mentor to have during
Sure.
my time with you. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, and say hi to Mike and Maria.
I will do. Okay. All
right.
I will. Happy holidays.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So we're going to go to our break.
Thank you, Dr. Eric Stanberg, Robin Baker, and a very, very special thanks to Dr. Catherine Agricola, Direct Primary Care. You're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Central Hudson. Today, some clouds with a high of 52. Right now, it's 36 degrees here on this Monday, December 13th. Some clouds today, some sun. And tonight's low will be 30 degrees. Today's high is 52 degrees. Tuesday, some clouds, some sun. Partly cloudy. A high of 49. And Tuesday night, Low is 27 degrees, partly cloudy to cloudy skies overnight. Wednesday, cloudy with occasional showers later in the day with a high of 44. And Wednesday night's low is 42 degrees with showers in the evening and then cloudy overnight. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920, 92.5 FM. And our call-in line today is 331-9255. It is always 331-9255. The following segment of KCR is brought to you by Herzog's. Do you ever think about what really matters? At Herzog's Home and Paint Centers, community, family, and neighborhood all matter. And Herzog's employees have been a part of the Herzog's family for years, and they value personal customer service and being close to their community. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building, maintenance, and painting needs. Discover the difference of buying local. Sales ongoing at herzogs.com. And keep us busy. Brand new calls, brand new people. 331-9255. So let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Eric Standberg and Robin Baker.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the second half of this morning show. We'll be here until 9 a.m. Our phone number is 331-9255. We have Dr. Catherine Agricola as a guest, the proprietor of Care, which is a DPC model out of Newburgh, and she really is a unique physician. And really, if
very talented, very, very talented physician.
And this is, the type of model. If you find yourself just wanting someone where you're going to get more kind of a relational model, not so much kind of like have to come in, really kind of access to someone a little more regularly. It might be worth your.
She's just not held down to this corporate type of thinking where it's a patient every 15 minutes and I don't have time for you anymore. She can decide for herself how long to stay with her patient. So, geez, that must mean the world to her patients. And that must mean the world to her patients and also to herself, that she just has that luxury. It's unfortunate that you're going to say that word in this context, that's a luxury. It is.
It's also a good model for people who have very high deductibles. People could be insured, but it's like they can't access the health care. They got to pay, $5,000 out of pocket before they see a dime.
Just want to mention that we did not do birthdays right after the break because we don't have any birthdays for today. So if your birthday's coming up or you have a loved one whose birthday's coming up, just access the website, send us a little note, and we'll get you in the birthday club. You could win a Boyce Dairy Milk House famous cow pie.
My daughter Sarah is going to be 25 on Saturday.
Her birthday's coming up, but her birthday's not today.
No, but I just wanted to give her a little shout out.
Her birthday's coming.
Yes. My daughter Sarah, 25 years old. She was 4.5 pounds when she was born. Brought her home from the hospital in a manila envelope.
She doesn't like it when you're saying that.
All right, so
yeah, that kind of a model is really, it sounds so silly to say old-fashioned, but I guess it's old-fashioned. That's how I grew up. I don't know how, Dan, is that how you grew up with a doctor? We had our one doctor in town, and
he was the one for everybody.
Everybody had major medical.
For everybody in our family.
Right. And then when you went to the doctor, you paid, your $20 or whatever for your visit. And that was the end of it. There was nobody else involved. No insurance companies, no pharmaceutical companies, like nobody in the way.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I wanted to ask Dr. Arcola if she uses an EMR. She has access to the...
She does.
Yeah.
And the EMR is kind of, I was thinking about this because EMR started to come out about 2003, 4, 5, and the initial reports from the doctors, they loved it. It was kind of like a new toy in a way, and but it was basically just a way to document. You instead of writing notes in a sheet of paper and a paper chart, you just kind of wrote them as a entry in on a computer, kind of like almost like a word processing document. But as time went on, they became more
Electronic medical record?
yes.
Okay.
Sometimes called an EHR, which is electronic health record. But they kind of did more, like, for example, I have an inbox. I will get, overnight, I probably have received anywhere from 10 to 15 refill requests that are just kind of auto-generated by various pharmacies. And then, so the weight of the EMR or EHR has increased over time, and to the point where a lot of doctors and other healthcare providers are kind of exhausted by it.
Yeah, and the other big, fib, I guess is a nice way to say it, about the electronic medical record was that these systems were supposed to talk to one another. The big benefit being, like, say you're vacationing in South Carolina,
Yeah.
and you get hurt, so the doctor can enter your information in the EMR, and the EMR, he'll have your history and he'll have all your information. Well, that's not the case.
No, not at all.
Because companies who came up with these electronic medical records decided that they would have their electronic medical records, and their electronic medical records don't talk to
Right.
a different medical record corporation, so that there wasn't one system that could speak to each other.
Right.
There's individual systems that cannot access each other.
Remember, they were jockeying for market share, so they had to convince someone that their product was the best. Well, if their product could just talk to the other product, they were kind of a little interchangeable, weren't they? So, and plus the government, which had a major role in rolling this out, did not require it. So there were two kind of major problems to the rollout, that they're not interoperable. I always talk about the card that we have from your bank, that you could take this card to any bank in the country, maybe even parts of Canada, and Mexico, and
Go to any ATM and just use your card.
use your card,
Yeah.
and they will access your account, decide how much money you have, and give you money if you want it.
Because, right, they're doesn't matter what bank, doesn't matter, right. I mean, sometimes there's like a fee associated,
Might
right,
be
with
a
that
fee.
kind of thing, like a $3 fee. But even so,
Right. So, all right. So I wanted to segue into a similar topic, which is an article that my brother had shared with me called CVS Maps Path to Primary Care Delivery. So this is sort of what Dr. Agricola was talking about. The opportunity that and she was a venture capitalist, but also just big organizations, CVS or insurance companies see to fill this horrible gap of primary care, which has been the result of a 50, 60 year decimation of primary care. It's an article from the Associated Press. CVS Health Corps is launching a plan to use telemedicine, new clinics, and teams of doctors, nurses, and pharmacists to push deeper into managing customer health. The healthcare giant on Thursday outlined a future that is expected to be defined by delivering care with what it sees as a unique mix of resources. Someone named CEO Karen Lynch said, "We are closer to the consumer than anyone else." I immediately was taken aback by that. She is referring to her patient that they want as the consumer. I don't know, Ms. Lynch. The company says it intends to add a few hundred primary care centers to its mix of drugstores and health hub locations it started introducing a few years ago. They aim to open about 1,000 this year. The clinics will include a doctor-led care team that also may include social workers and mental health specialists. The goal of this approach is to give customers an easier way to keep up with their health and stay in regular contact with different care providers, depending on what they need. That can lead to that. Here we go again. You see this a lot in these articles. They always say it's going to lead to lower cost. They always will do this. So the next sentence in this little blurb is a statement that is kind of just pure conjecture. That can lead to lower cost and better health, especially for people with chronic conditions or those who don't have a regular doctor. Lynch said Thursday that primary care makes up only about 10% of national health care spending, which is amazing when you think about it. 10% of your health care dollar is spent on primary care services. But it wields significant influences over health care utilization. She told analysts last month that company leaders believe they need to push into the primary care so that we can influence the overall cost of care. Interesting, right? Again, I guess she's being honest about, really just talking about cost and consumers. CVS Health isn't alone in its ambitions. Drugstore rival Walgreens and other healthcare companies like United Health Group have moved deeper into providing health care. They're all competing to become regular guides for customers through the complicated healthcare system.
I mean, this is not new. Didn't they want to put a clinic in Walmart?
Well,
And Walmart has a successful pharmacy, but were they ever successful in putting clinics into Walmart? I mean, where, you go get your groceries and, go get your, is there a dentist office in Walmart too? You can go get a new crown or something. I mean,
there was a time where the doctor had the pharmacy right next, part of their office. You had a little apothecary, whatever you want to call it. As the business became more complicated, as more potential prescription products became available, the idea of a separate pharmacy was developed. But part of it was because they felt there was a conflict of interest, that the doctor had an incentive to recommend the medication because they would then therefore profit more from it. So the idea of a separate pharmacy that the doctor wouldn't make any money whether or not they recommended a medication or not. What happened over the past 5-10 years is they started to recommend these health clinics inside the confines of a pharmacy or a Walmart. They were called, they had different names, Minute Clinic. They were kind of like urgent cares. And they were technically kosher because they were separate companies. So it's like someone just renting space.
oh, but what, are you going to go to the clinic at CVS and then go to Walgreens for your prescription?
Right. So we were always uncomfortable with this because we felt that was a conflict of interest. But it was being allowed. They always allow it, saying that it's going to improve access. People need access, But what happened to these minute clinics? Well, guess what? They got replaced. I always say when convenience is your product, you're always going to be out-conveniented. So they got displaced by teleproducts. That now don't even make you leave your living room. So that whole model kind of became obsolete pretty quickly, and it never really took off.
Can I offer a common sense observation?
Sure.
I mean, have you been to CVS lately? Have you tried to fill a prescription? Because the line is out the door.
Those poor pharmacists and techs that work there, they are working so hard, and I have eternal respect for them.
I guess they just don't have enough help.
I think that there's the just employee strain that is affecting everything right now. I think that they need to increase their staffing, recruit some more pharmacists. There's a lot of turnover, similar to turnover in healthcare as well.
So it makes me skeptical when you read an article like that.
Right.
If I can't get my, prescription filled without waiting in a line that's, halfway around the store.
Right.
How am I going to stop into the clinic?
Right. So my impressions were that the first one was I was really taken aback by how the CEO of CVS was literally calling them consumers,
Well, they're
and not
consumers,
patients.
right?
And that was one thing that really blew me away. And then just the idea that somehow it's going to make things cheaper and more efficient. It just never happens.
There's no way they're doing it to make less money, or there has to be a huge profit in it. The doctor's not going to your office. The patient's not going to your office, Eric. They're going there.
Right.
Instead of to you.
When you look under the surface of models like this, you kind of see a tendency to not care for the sickest of the sick. Because in a way they're not set up for that. They're set up for kind of, little this, little that. They talk about having mental health specialists. Again, we'll see. A conflict of interest we talked about, and then concerns about already, maybe not being able to do what needs to be done at the pharmacies, and then they kind of branch out. So it makes me nervous. There is a company that I have read about called Village MD, which is kind of like similar, but it really is physician-run, and when you read their website, it really, to me, sends out a good vibe that it is about the patients and providing better care for patients. So I'm not saying the whole model is without validity. And the idea with the Village MD is that they would kind of be in a mall with maybe a pharmacy next door, but that's just because of where they would be located. It is a new model, but I was taken aback by that. What do you think, Robin?
Yeah. I just have doubts that they can pull it off. I mean, anybody can say, oh, I'm going to do this. Then we're going to provide this service. And all of a sudden it's going to cost less.
You know, I'm nervous about it. I'm a little cynical about it. But if I were to somehow get a call like this would ever happen, saying, we need a doctor to kind of supervise this site, and a guy kind of like you, mid-career, is this something you might be interested? I guess I would talk to him. I mean, I wouldn't say no and hang up the phone, but it just makes me nervous. It just, primary care is difficult. You know that?
Right.
And providing care for medicine in general is difficult. So, any way to kind of make it easier, I guess I would welcome that if that's really the goal. But if it's going to result in like cherry picking of patients,
Does it just result in a second visit? Like, you come in, you're sick, and then you're referred to the ER anyway because you're too sick.
That happens, and people don't really talk about this, but that happens with telemedicine and also urgent care. Kind of like, that story she told about Dr. Agricola about diagnosing AFib. If that patient had presented to urgent care, and it happens, they would, in my opinion, 100% chance would be sent to the emergency room for further evaluation. So the context of a longitudinal relationship enabled Dr. Agricola to not only provide excellent care, but more cost-effective.
But contact the cardiologist while you're sitting there in the office. Find out when the patient can get an appointment. If it's going to be soon enough, that's, in her opinion, that he can wait, to see the specialist. And then have the ability to follow up, even though she's not taking care of the specific problem, but then being able to talk to him about this problem and having the time to reach out. I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm able to take advantage of things like that. I'll do an EKG in my office. I have some questions about it. It's an example of the EMR working in my favor. I could then, it's a scanned digital copy, so I can send the equivalent of an email over to one of the new Vance cardiologists, asking them to look at the EKG and see if they agree or disagree with what I think is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not going to happen necessarily right away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I needed a quicker answer, it would be a different story. But, when you think about the, EMRs and whether we're going to vilify all of them, I mean, they do some good things. And I do try to remember the days of the paper charts. They were illegible. They were always falling apart. Papers were, literally, particularly as time went on, they got thicker and thicker, and papers just literally just hanging out of the charts. I mean, they were messy. And I always joke, and I'm just joking with my nurse, that the worst thing about not having paper charts anymore is I have nothing to throw across the room when I'm aggravated. But that everybody who had to work with a doctor in the year of paper charts will tell you the story of the chart throw. It's actually an Olympic event.
It's like a Frisbee.
That's a pretty funny, like a welcome to med school event. The chart throw, on the orientation day. So we don't have charts to throw anymore, which is probably making nurses happy.
Right. All right. So a clinic in CVS. We'll see. That's your takeaway is. We'll see.
There's like two things: either the idea and then the motivations behind the idea. The idea I have concerns about. We talked about them. The motivation behind the idea I have more concerns about, which you and I know, and Dan knows. We all know that the number one incentive here is to make profit off of it. The model itself, again, the proximity to the store. Some of these CVS has, around 10 years ago now, stopped selling tobacco products, which is interesting. And they really, and I think Rite Aid might have done the same thing, but I think Walgreens still sells tobacco products. But CVS clearly said, about 5-10 years ago, we're getting out of the tobacco business, and that was respectable. and so we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted, and about this. All right, so we're not quite at our last break yet, but I started the morning by talking about COVID again, and I said that I wish I didn't have to talk. I wish you and I did not have to talk about COVID so much.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. So let me pull up some numbers here.
Here we are. The mask mandate starts today.
Yes.
That Governor Hochul put in place.
Yep, and we made a plea. Oh boy, there we go. We made a plea for people to not take out their aggravations on workers and proprietors.
Right. I mean, I also work at a restaurant, and man, it's hard on us. I mean, we don't want to have to do it either. It is no fun waiting on people with a mask on. They can't see your face. They can't hear what you're saying. They can't, I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we'll get back to that, but this is an article from the Freeman giving an update from 2 days ago. So Dutchess County reported on Saturday a jump of 227 active cases to a total. Let's round the numbers off. So 225 new cases to a total of 1,400. Ulster County doesn't report on Saturday, but on Friday we had about 1,000 cases, which is up 36. Positivity rates, this makes me nervous. An Ulster County positivity rate is 7%. Now remember, that's very underreported. You get self-testing now. We can go to CVS right now and get a test off the shelf there. And a lot of people are being diagnosed in urgent with rapid tests. That might not ever be reported. Dutchess
But if
County,
you are taking one of those home tests and you are positive, you please contact your doctor right away.
Yeah, no, and we did. You should seek appropriate medical counsel. The positivity rate in Dutchess County is a little bit less at 5.57. Vaccination rates. Okay, this is concerning. Now, we probably need about 80% of our population vaccinated to get herd immunity, and might even be higher. For example, measles, for example, requires a very high level. It's very contagious. So measles requires a very high level of immunity in the community in order to prevent it from spreading. And that's, somewhere in the 80s, if not 90%. Anyway, so in Ulster County, again, rounding off numbers a little bit, but 69% are fully vaccinated, 77% with at least one dose, and 85% of the 18-plus population with at least one dose. It's just fairly recent that they've started to offer the vaccine for people under age 18, so there'll be some catch-up there. But 69% fully vaccinated is really just too low. And then Dutchess County, that's even worse. It's 63.5%. And that's concerning. So, that the idea that there's a difference between people fully vaccinated versus people with only one dose, about 15%, that concerns me too. Those could just be people who just recently got their first dose and haven't gotten around the second dose, or it could be people who never went back for their second dose. And some of those reasons are understandable. Maybe they had a bad reaction and they don't want to go through it again. I kind of say you should, be prepared, take some Tylenol, take the day off from work, make sure you're hydrated.
It's way better than getting COVID.
That's right. That's right. Let's see, I want to look up about the mask mandate. And I agree with Governor Hochul in the sense that I think she has to make a decision. This is what leadership's all about. She's making a decision based upon advice she's gotten.
Evidence.
And I think, I don't think it's that big a deal, by the way. Wear a mask. Let me pull it up, though, okay? Okay.
Right. They said that the numbers are as high right now as they were at the, some of the highest points.
Yeah. All right, so Governor Hochul says stricter measures are needed to curb COVID spread. Daily COVID deaths in New York are up. I'm just going to quick sum through this up. Even though the Omicron variant is here, the major cause of morbidity is still the Delta variant. And the vaccine does provide protection against Delta variant and probably also the Omicron variant. So come Monday, that's today, all indoor public places in New York that do not require proof of full vaccination for entry must implement a mask mandate. Decision was based on mounting concern of a 7-day case rate and also rising hospitalization. Noncompliance comes with fines of up to $1,000 per violation. It will be reassessed on January 15th, so just a month, basically. Covers many indoor spaces it covers any indoor space that is not a private residence. Here are the 3 key things businesses, employees, and public might know. So I hate to say it, but maybe we should be wearing a mask right now.
Right,
However,
but
we're all vaccinated.
Right, and you're my bubble.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like a proprietor could alternatively ask for proof of vaccination. Some businesses may choose not to do that. Maybe just have a big sign up saying wear a mask or show us your vaccination status. I don't think anyone's being deprived of anything.
Yeah, I don't think that it would be necessary in the on-air room because it's a trusted environment, just like a table at a restaurant. It's a trusted environment where you're able to take your mask off.
Well, at the restaurant yesterday, I worked yesterday, and we had a couple stop in that were from New York City. And, of course, this is a big discussion, in the restaurant and at the bar there. And they were saying that it's just commonplace in New York City. It's been like this the entire time. New York City had this in place from the very beginning.
With the mask?
No, you have to show proof of vaccination or you can't walk in anywhere. He said everyone in the city is prepared. They have their proof out as they walk in the door. It's not a question. No one is upset about it. And if they would like to go into a restaurant or a bar or another public space, they are showing their vaccination and their proof of vaccination so that they can go in, so they can move freely in these public spaces. And he's like, no one even thinks twice about it.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
It's the way it is. I don't have a problem with showing my vaccine. In fact, I'm kind of proud to show it.
Yeah.
You gotta get your booster.
At the where I work, they have decided, though, it's not their place to police people to see who's vaccinated and who isn't. They're going to ask everyone to wear a mask regardless of their vaccination status. And at a restaurant, that means wearing a mask if you stand up or move about the restaurant or move from your table to the restroom.
Right.
You'll be required to wear a mask. If you're sitting down at a table or at the bar, then you're allowed to take your mask off. So that's just the way just the way they're choosing to handle it.
All right, let's go to our break.
Thank you, Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker. And again, a very, very special thanks to Dr. Catherine Agricola, Direct Primary Care, who was in with us up until 8 o'clock. And you are listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. 36 degrees on this Monday, December 13th. Because the colors and quality of paint you choose matters, Herzog's Paint and Design Center, located in the Kingston Plaza, is there for you, offering the largest selection of Benjamin Moore paints and the area's most complete line of painting supplies. Herzog's Paint and Design Center also provides color samples from Benjamin Moore paints, including the eco-friendly Aura line. Color decorating consultants and expert interior designers are ready to assist you in choosing the right colors. Visit Herzog's in the Kingston Plaza. Weather and forecast for the next 3 days. Today, some clouds with a high of 52 and otherwise sunny. And tonight's low is 30 degrees, clear and partly cloudy. And Tuesday, some clouds, some sun, high of 49. Tuesday night's low, 27 degrees with a partly cloudy to cloudy skies overnight. Wednesday, cloudy with occasional showers later in the day with a high of 44. And that's about a 40% chance of rain. And Wednesday night's low, 42 degrees with showers in the evening continuing. And then cloudy overnight. And you have been listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. Now let's return back to the on-air studio with Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker. Welcome back.
All right, welcome. Welcome back, Robin.
Hi.
So for the last half hour of our show, all right, we were slugging around the new mask mandate and giving encouragement to listeners to follow the rules and behave. Really, people who have not been vaccinated, you really, 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 really should get it done. I had a patient, and by the way, the patient was vaccinated, but he said something to me about, well, it's all political. I said, it's not political. Not to me. I'm your doctor, and I advise you to do what I think is in your best interest, and that's to get the vaccine. There's no politics there. It's that simple. So I don't think it's political to recommend the vaccine. I had an interesting discussion with another one of our infectious disease colleagues, Dr. Yanofsky, about natural immunity, because I had talked over the past few weeks about a study out of Israel that people who maybe don't agree with the vaccination efforts will quote that natural immunity is better and more long lasting. A couple points. One is that still, even if that is true, and it may or may not be true, it still doesn't mean you should get COVID instead of not getting COVID. That's foolhardy. You get natural immunity against measles, to be honest with you. We know measles you get only once in your life. Doesn't mean you should get it. For those people who are old enough to remember when measles was a real fear, there were bad cases. I always think about Roald Dahl. You know what Roald Dahl was? Mm-hmm. He's the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach and Matilda, and he lost a daughter to measles in the early 60s and wrote some very poignant, moving essays about that, encouraging people to get vaccinated, because the measles vaccine really was kind of a mid-60s thing. You and I were kind of like the first generation of people that were vaccinated as infants.
Right.
Anyway, so how to get on that topic?
Because of vaccinations.
Right. So we were talking about natural immunity. So, the one patient that I was very, very concerned about said that he's had COVID 3 times. Now, that's pretty amazing. I don't see why he would make that up, but the third time is making him quite ill. So here's, at least, if we're going to believe in anecdotes, here's an example of one person who had COVID multiple times and does not have natural immunity to it because he is now quite ill with it.
And hospitalized.
Seriously ill. So, that's also one of the problems overall is when you believe in anecdotes rather than facts. My friend this, I know somebody who did this. And, that happens a lot when you talk to people about vaccinating, getting vaccinated, well, I think you should get vaccinated. Yeah, well, I have someone, I think it was just last week, I have this friend in their family, everyone who wasn't vaccinated didn't get sick, but the one who was vaccinated got sick. I mean, it's like, okay, but you're still, you're allowing that one little story, which may or may not be true, to affect your decision.
Uh-huh.
So you should still get vaccinated. And all right, so we talked about the fact that you can get COVID again, despite claims that natural immunity is forever. And maybe it's longer than 3 months, maybe it isn't, but you could still get it again. and some, studies showing that people who have COVID and get vaccinated afterwards are less likely to get it again. So, I'm going to kind of go back to, more clearly advising my patients who've had COVID that they should get the vaccine. Stick with the recommendation 3 months after getting sick. A lot of upsets us, the caretakers, but one is when someone is ill with COVID and maybe seriously ill because they're hospitalized. By the way, if you're hospitalized, you are seriously ill. I mean, it's that simple. There's different degrees of how serious, but if you're bad enough to be hospitalized, you got it. You got it bad. When we take care of someone and they're still kind of like not willing to get the vaccine.
Follow medical advice.
Right. Or even turn their story into something, to encourage other people not to suffer the way they've suffered, which to me is kind of a no-brainer conclusion. I don't want someone else to go through this. So I would, every now and then we have a patient who is like, yeah, this was, I made the wrong decision. I'm going to, if I survive this, I'm going to communicate to everyone I know that they should get the vaccine. And I say, that's great. It's good to hear. Again, when someone's sick with COVID, it's the wrong time to argue with them about whether or not they should have been vaccinated because it doesn't matter at that point.
Right.
But going forward, I think the reaction to it, turning your experience into something to help others versus, kind of just not learning from it. It's quite frustrating for us.
So the takeaway is to try not to be so frustrated, and certainly don't take out your frustration on business owners who have to implement this mandate. And please get vaccinated.
Right. We're still recommending the flu vaccine. Okay. We did not have much of a flu season last year, but we don't know, and we're still once again worried about a double hit. Kind of people who might have flu and COVID at the same time. So if you've not had that vaccine done, you should. Now, ideally we'd like to have the flu shot done in September or October, November. December's getting a little late, but it's still not too late. So if you've not had it done, please do. Either call your primary care provider or alternatively, go to a pharmacy. By the way, pharmacies are busy now. The idea of just kind of walking in for your flu shot is not really going to happen so much anymore. You should be calling or going online or whatever.
Yeah, they require appointments now.
Yeah. I heard an ad. Robin's got me. Robin, you're a very good influence on me because now I'm listening to NPR, and I think it makes me smarter.
There's a lot of good information there.
Why don't you say something like, "How could you possibly be smarter?"
Right.
Okay. Anyway. But there was an ad run by Newvance about breast cancer awareness and reminding women to get mammograms. So it does fit into a bigger theme, which is to stay up to date with our regular routine preventative health care.
Yeah, they said that they have appointments available on the weekends and in the evenings to make it more convenient, and that you don't need an order, that you can go in and ask for a mammogram.
That's not new. New York State has allowed women to self-refer for mammograms, and because the idea was whatever gets the woman to get the mammogram. I still think it's a good idea if you have a primary care provider or an OBGYN or a breast specialist to ask them for a prescription, because then it makes the receipt of information a little more fluid. So I
you kind of want those results back.
Kinda. I don't want and I order a lot of mammograms in my practice, and so do OBGYN providers. We had Dr. Curcio on as a guest a couple of months ago. She was a wonderful guest. The official recommendation is for women 50 and older to get a mammogram every 2 years. But I don't know if you remember the conversation. She very clearly disagrees with that and thinks that women should get mammograms annually. And she also, in a way, that age 50 every 2 years is like the minimum. And then there's the official recommendation for women between 40 and 50 is one of these. We get these a lot, these kind of wishy-washy recommendations. It reads like this. Well, it's informed consent, informed decision making, explain the risk versus benefit. Women 40 and up should get mammograms. It's just that simple. People, I know people. You had a dear friend who passed away from breast cancer in her 40s. It's
Terrible.
Yeah, it's rough. So to stay up to date with your preventative health, mammograms, pap smears. You don't forget about those. Generally, most women it's every 3 years now, which is good. Although it's kind of easier to lose track of. For decades, women once a year. Would say, hey, I just had a birthday. I'm going to make my appointment. And colon cancer screening, that we're really improving with our screening efforts for them. Ordering more Cologuards. Insurance coverage for those has improved. So remember, if your healthcare provider orders a Cologuard for you, remember that it has an expiration date. So don't sit on it forever. That was a pun. But really, I've had some patients who finally do it, and then it's expired. They just have to do it again. It's not that big. I know it's kind of weird, but it's not that big a deal.
No, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And, of course, you could choose to have a colonoscopy for screening as well. And if you're above average risk, you should have a colonoscopy, not just a Cologuard. Family history, any symptom. Any history of ever having something before, like a polyp. Lung cancer screening is kind of becoming more and more widely done.
They have that low-dose CT scan.
Called an LDCT. By the way, they also look at, with this CT, you're looking at the rib cage. So what else is in the rib cage? I'm not questioning it. The heart. So it's not unusual now for me to order this because someone meets criteria. We'll review the criteria in a second because it probably applies to a lot of people. But the reports come back also commenting on the blood vessels to the heart and calcifications. So if someone has calcified blood vessels, that is usually linked to atherosclerosis or heart disease. So in a way, that's a marker. So it's been happening a lot where I've done the lung cancer screening, and then thankfully they don't have any evidence of that, but they got these coronary artery calcifications. So I usually recommend a cardiology consultation for them. Decide if they want to do any stress testing or not. One patient in particular wound up needing stuff done, stents and. But lung cancer screening, it's so good that the criteria has actually been broadened. So the age range was changed from 55 to 75 to 50 to 80. So that's another 10 years worth of people that can potentially have this. You have to be either a current smoker or quit within the past 15 years. That's a long time. 15 years ago was 2006. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And they also pack years. The pack year requirement was 30 pack year history. Now it's been lowered to 20 pack year history. So what does that mean? That means basically you smoked a pack per day for about 20 years. I guess you could smoke 2 packs a day for 10 years or half a pack a day for 40 years. I'll tell you, most smokers are smoking a pack a day. What do you think? You think that's kind of true? And
I guess. I would assume.
I hate to break the news to you, smokers. We know you're under reporting when we ask you how much you smoke. So if you say only a half pack a day, I kind of double that. We kind of do the same thing with drinking too.
Yeah.
All right. So lung cancer screening. A lot of people out there are candidates for this. It's covered. Medicare definitely covers it. insurance companies are improving with their coverage of it.
And the treatments are improving. Like if if they find anything, the treatments, there's just new treatments that are excellent. So the earlier you can detect something, the better off you are.
Right. And I guess I'll toot the horn of my organization again. New Vance has a surgical oncology program going on over at Vassar with some excellent surgeons working in conjunction with oncologists and pulmonologists to help work up these abnormalities that are seen maybe on a CAT scan. So, I want two patients in particular who are very happy that they had the test done. And I always try to review topics because I know there's people out there who maybe have not had these things done or they're overdue for them.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of a little reminder.
Right. Please do it.
And we started the morning about talking about Happy Lights. Didn't you used to sell those?
Mm-hmm. No, the Happy Lights are, I grew up on a farm. So the lights are very important, actually, for chickens. Like if you raise chickens or if you have chickens, because in the wintertime, we would have a lighting system to keep the lights on for 12 hours. Because when otherwise the chickens molt and they go into a molting phase and they don't produce eggs.
You have to kind of fool
because
them.
it's dark too much.
Interesting.
Yes, you have to trick them. They think it's still, the sun is still out. And we had our lights like on a timer and they would go, stay on to keep the chickens in the light, in the coops at night. So to me, this it's not a new concept, with it being, I don't know about you, but it's dark when I wake up and it's dark when you get home.
Yeah.
And that's very, very tough on people.
I want to make eggs.
Yeah. Dan, think of all the eggs that you're going to make now.
Yes, now I remember. I lived on a farm, and the chicken coop was lit up many hours before and after sunrise and sunset.
Yeah, to keep them in their cycle and in their rhythm.
Wow.
Otherwise, they just would shut down. So
obviously, nature kind of says, okay, winter time, shut down factory.
Yeah, exactly.
In order for interesting.
So having this concept where you have this radiant light, right? And we had a little Hanukkah celebration, and we got some for the kids.
Yes.
Because, what can it hurt? It doesn't hurt anything.
No.
And
by the way, I think it makes a nice holiday gift.
You can bask in
that member of the family who just gets a little down in the dumps, or even worse, in January and February. It's a nice gift. And they study it, by the way. They do find it to be effective. But it has to be, it's a special product that the wavelengths kind of mimic what the sun provides. It's not just like standing in under these fluorescent lights. I mean,
and I think that, it's very common in places in the world where, for months at a time, it's dark all the time, that people are using this kind of lighting too
I think it is. Like, in Alaska, for example, it's pretty common for this to be just kind of part of
just that's how you do it.
Of the life, yeah.
Right.
Where they have such long winters. Okay, so Happy Lights, again, might make a nice holiday gift for someone on your list. I find them to be affordable. And what else should we fill the time with?
You can just look them up. And they pop right up. Very inexpensive and kind of a nice way. So just speaking about that, what's going on with mental health in Ulster County?
I see those signs, and I want to try to reach out to the organization, and see if they want to, come and represent their viewpoint on the show. I mean, it's, you and I, don't want to take sides, so to speak, but someone is certainly welcome to come on and offer their opinion. It's a concern. I mean, mental health is under strain everywhere. It always has been, probably always will be. It will probably always be underfunded to some degree. And I guess Westchester, has does not plan on bringing back the psychiatric beds to the Kingston hospitals. And that's upsetting to people. When I came to town in '95, and Benedictine had, was one of the major services Benedictine provided, which was inpatient psychiatric care. Outpatients also kind of under strain. They seem to have kind of a revolving door of providers, prescribers. There are times where the patient is literally directed to me by Ulster County Mental Health to prescribe psychiatric meds, because at the time there's no prescriber. And I think that's been remedied, at least for the time being. But that can be quite frustrating, because the biggest problem is usually the communication isn't great. They just, they kind of reach out and say, hey, we're in a little bit of a pickle here. We're in between providers, and anyway.
So the couple of resources we have here in Ulster, the Service Recovery Center, they have a hotline. So if you were having a crisis, you can always reach out to the Ulster County Recovery Center hotline. That number is 845-443-8888. And Ulster County also has a mobile mental health that, can actually be called if someone is in a crisis in their home. They go directly to the patient where the patient is. The mobile mental health number is 844-277-4820, and they are, you can access that service from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. any day of the week, 7 days a week. And they also have a behavioral health urgent care. The urgent care is located at 368 Broadway. I think that's at Kingston Hospital. It's Suite 205, and that's for mental health and substance abuse. So
I had no idea.
if anybody is in need of that service, they're open from 10 to 6,
so
Monday through Friday, and they're open
Wait,
24.
what are their hours? I'm talking over
They're
you.
open 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, and they are available 24/7 virtually. So that number is 888-750-2266. Push option 2, it says. So again, we have, these, I know we're in need of more help than I think than is accessible, but they do have those resources here.
I think that's great. I had no idea. By the way, that's provided by Health Alliance, so to be kind of in the middle of this local conflict. I mean, it sounds like they're trying to provide services. So, to kind of just unequivocally say, they don't care does not appear to be the case.
Right.
Medicine's a rough business, and we talked briefly about how the procedures are the money makers. There's not much money in psychiatric care or behavioral care. The fact that big organizations have to kind of work within that system and still provide the service. The fact that the service is still being provided, I guess that's kind of good news.
Yes, very good news.
I've had some frustrations with my Suboxone patients. Some insurance, New York State Medicaid, primarily really kind of playing games with what type of product they're going to cover. In a way that really just results in a delay of the patient getting the medication. Well, guess what's happened to someone who has opioid addiction if they don't have access to the Suboxone?
They continue to use.
Right. They can relapse. They can, go through withdrawals. So this is kind of a big deal. Medicaid, I don't even know where they are this month. Do they want the brand of Suboxone versus the generic, or is it the other way around? I can't keep it straight. But that is also something that's been frustrating. So again, anyone listening, also, if you have a family member or yourself with substance abuse problems, you seek care. Encourage them to seek care as well.
Reach out to the Pine Grove Center as well.
Pine Grove is like kind of outpatient psychiatric facilities.
360 Washington Avenue.
Yep.
It's the second floor of that building, so that service is also available if you're in need of that kind of care.
Yeah, all right. So there's some things, because the holidays are complicated. I mean, they're happy, but they're kind of not. Especially in times like this with the pandemic still going on, still raging, and just a little bit of everything, I guess.
Right. And is there anything in the wellness visit that pertains to a patient's mental health?
Yeah. They're actually, it's kind of required. So we're talking about a Medicare wellness visit, which is kind of, you have to follow it. Yes, it does include a screening for depression. The problem with that is it's when it's so cookbook, it's a 2-question screen, how did you answer? I mean, it's not very personable, and this takes time, by the way, if someone,
And honestly, if someone's underreporting their smoking or, how many drinks they have, you think they're underreporting how they feel?
And the other, say they do report how they feel. I'm kind of in a system where I don't really have the time to explore that. I have to then kind of make a executive decision to, abort the wellness visit and focus on that, or complete the wellness visit and schedule.
Have them come back.
Or try to do both at the same time, which is
Right.
usually what happens. But that makes, takes a lot of time.
Right. But you would encourage your patients to speak openly and let you know what's going on, right, before things get worse or, yeah.
All right, we're inching up towards the end of the show. I know we're just kind of doing a little grab bag of topics here, but we were thankful to Dr. Agricola for calling in. Remember, her practice is called Care. It's based out of Newburgh. It's a very good option for someone who wants a more relational type of primary care model. It's also financially not a bad idea if you got a high deductible plan, where you can still get your routine health care and have it not really break the bank. Robin, you and I shall be back next week. Last show of the year.
Yep. We'll see you next Monday.
And thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Robin Baker and Dr. Eric Stanberg. And again, a very, very special thanks to Dr. Catherine Agricola for calling in and representing Direct Primary Care. You've been with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Monday, December 13th, 36 degrees right now still. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. We invite you to be with us tomorrow morning for a terrific Tuesday, 7 to 9 a.m. every weekday. And until tomorrow, we wish you every success in growing and developing Kingston and all our neighboring communities. We now return you to Magic 92.5.